Good evening and welcome to Between the Trees here at St. John's. And we are usually at Between the Trees, we are just talking about parishioners or talking to parishioners to get to know them a little bit better. But every once in a while we bring in somebody else, a local celebrity. And so tonight we have a local celebrity. So this is Bill Eaves, Pastor Bill Eaves. And he is the pastor at the White Bear Lake United Methodist Church. So welcome, Bill. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, St. John's.
Yeah, and actually Bill lives just right around the corner from us. So when we're ringing bells or doing anything like that, Bill, you are the beneficiary of our bell ringing.
Absolutely. So. I live on Banning right behind, and I keep an eye on the place.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's good. We need somebody to keep an eye on us.
All right.
To make sure we're especially a good proper Methodist.
That's it.
Yeah. So, and Bill and I actually, Bill was, before I even came here to St. John's, Bill reached out to me. He and I went to college together to a small liberal arts college in Tennessee. We're both Southerners. And we both went to college together, and actually we're in the same class. We didn't hang out a lot, which is kind of weird, but we didn't. But for both of us to be here is really strange. So before I even came here, Bill reached out to me and has been a good friend since I've been here. So thanks again for coming and being here. And my question to you is, I, as a Tennessean, don't run into a lot of Southerners who have migrated north. We usually, probably your congregation like ours, we lose people to the south, especially in the winter, and then some permanently. When they're just done with winter, they go south. So what's the deal, Bill? Why'd you move north?
Yeah, well, that's a question probably all Southerners in Minnesota are asking themselves this week. Oh boy. Well, I followed my wife here the old-fashioned way. We were living in Louisville, Kentucky. Sherry and I had met in seminary, and she went on for a PhD in theology and was looking for teaching jobs in theology. We were living in Louisville, Kentucky. I was pastor there for a few years, and we always kind of knew as she came to the end of her PhD program, we'd go wherever she needed to go for a good position. And she came in one day and said she had an interview at the University of St. Thomas. And I got very excited about that because I was thinking St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands, the other St. Thomas. And yes. She quickly corrected me on that, and that was sobering. Minnesota was really a place I had never really thought much about.
Had you been here before?
I had never been here. I had some friends from here, and they all seemed to love it and want to get back here as quickly as they could, but I never really thought about living here. And
right.
So when Sherry accepted the job here, we moved up. It was the summer of 1993.
Wow.
And
so do you consider yourself a northerner or a southerner?
You know, we really love living here. There's so many things about Minnesota. We've been in the Twin Cities area all that time, and we really love it. And we maybe not this week so much, but most of the time we love winter. And
yeah.
We love getting outside and doing the outside
and
stuff.
I've seen you out in the middle of the very, very cold weather walking on the lake walk. So you get out in it.
Yeah, someone told us the first winter we were here, you can't have an adversarial relationship with winter. You have to embrace it.
Yeah.
And I think there's some wisdom in that. I don't always make it out every day, but we try.
And that meant when you moved up from Louisville up here, you had to switch conferences.
I did.
And how many congregations have you served since you've been up here?
I'm in my third congregation since I've been in Minnesota.
And where were the others?
I was in Oakdale for 10 years, at Silver Lake Church. Then I was up in Anoka for 14 years.
Wow.
And,
14 years, that's pretty long for a Methodist to be in one place, isn't it? Or not really anymore?
Well, they're getting longer. Yeah,
okay.
Our tenures are getting, I think they're very similar to yours probably at this point.
Yeah. I mean, was in your system, do you get to choose, or is it a conversation with you and your bishop?
Well, we are officially appointed by our bishop, and it sounds a little more dictatorial than it actually works out to be in practice. There's consultation with both the clergy and with the church that's being appointed to, and everybody kind of has the right of refusal or reconsideration on that. So it usually works out pretty well.
Yeah, yeah. And is there, for the most part, is that just within the conference? Or what if you wanted to go to St. Thomas in the Virgin Islands? What would that entail?
Don't tempt me, okay? It would require the same thing that I had to do to come to Minnesota. You apply to a bishop for an appointment, and if they see something that seems like a good missional fit, then they'll arrange to make it happen.
Okay.
And that happened pretty quickly for us coming up here. And it's not always that smooth for everybody, but we were able to. In fact, I started at the church here before Sherry started at St. Thomas, so
yeah,
that worked out really well.
And I have visited you at your church over here when I first came. I've been busy since I first came. I didn't have to be here. Now on Sundays I'm here. I haven't seen you in my church either on Sundays. You must be.
Still want to do that sometime, one of these days.
That would be fun. One of these days. We're going to talk about that. But so tell me about your congregation here in White Bear.
Well, White Bear Lake United Methodist is really, it's a young church compared to this church. We were only founded in 1962. And I say young because that's the year I was born, so it's a young church, you see. And it was planted there at the time that really that part of White Bear Lake, we're off east of Highway 61 and south of County Road F. That part of White Bear Lake was just being developed in that time. All those homes in there were just being built, and so the church kind of grew up with the families that moved in there. And so it had a real connection to that community right away, and also a really good family feel to it. I think a lot of the people who were part of the church in the beginning had moved to White Bear Lake from other places, other parts of the country, other communities in Minnesota, and it just became a very close-knit community of people, and it still has a lot of that feel to it, I think. Through the years, the identity of White Bear Lake United Methodist has moved kind of more in the direction of being a progressive church, and we embrace being a progressive church, having a progressive theology very much, and being open and inclusive, and that's been important to us. One of the things that's I think is really unique about our church is our community bread oven, and some people probably know about that. The bread oven was the vision of my predecessor, Bryce Johnson, who was the pastor there for 18 years. And he had a vision of a bread oven being kind of a community gathering place. And it is that, and also it's kind of become the symbol of our ministry. We think of our ministry, really our vision is to provide nourishment for the hungers of life. And physical hungers and spiritual hungers and emotional hungers and intellectual hungers, and we try to look at all those things. And every summer we have a big community pizza picnic out there. And they make hundreds and hundreds of pizzas in the bread oven, and have music and lots of people there. It's just a wonderful
Are Episcopalians invited?
Absolutely. We'll be looking for you. Yeah. We didn't get to have it last summer because of COVID-19, but we're definitely hoping we can make that work.
I love that idea. It's like, it's, sort of the outward and visible sign, the bread oven, outward and visible sign of the identity of your congregation.
Right.
It's beautiful.
Right. Yeah. It really is it's kind of unique for a church to have one, or it was at the time that was built. People in our church have helped about 20 other church communities construct their own bread oven, and not just the construction, but to really build a ministry around that.
Right, because your bread oven is wood fired, right?
It is wood fired, right?
Yeah, so people have to get up early, and it's a whole deal.
They get up at 3 or 4 in the morning on the days that they bake bread, and get the fire going, and then they bake as much as they can while it's hot.
I think that will be one of those ministries that we say, thank God there's a White Bear Lake United Methodist Church. And we'll be cheerleaders at 3 a.m. We'll be cheerleaders from the side.
The bread is awfully good.
And your communion bread Is that baked in the bread?
It is baked there, yeah.
When I went to your church before I came here for a service, when I tasted, I know it has all the spiritual meaning in the world, but when I received that, I was like, now that is some great communion bread. So we'll have to get the recipe sometime.
Yeah, good deal. They don't actually trust me with the recipes. That's probably a top secret kind of thing, but I can pull some strings.
Okay.
We'll get it for you.
And so what's life been like during COVID for your congregation?
Well, it's been interesting and challenging, as it has been for all churches right now, I think, and for everybody else for that matter. We've done our worship online as you've done, and that's really connected with a lot of people. It has not connected so well with some people, and
same as here.
It makes it hard to stay in touch with people when we don't have that weekly gathering at the center of our life together. And I really am, nobody's more anxious than I am to get us back together again in person, and I know we can't really do that yet, but when we can, we'll certainly be ready.
Yeah.
It really, what I've seen is the pandemic has brought out amazing gifts in people that they were never really called to share before.
Yeah.
And I know for me, I've had to up my own game technologically, and learned a whole lot from the people around me in that way. And just also, people have stepped forward in terms of just caring for each other and really reaching out and staying in touch with and meeting needs of people in the church and beyond, for that matter.
That's been our experience as well. I mean, quickly, when all this started, I realized there's no way that I can keep, pastorally even, keep in touch with all these folks, and our congregation has really stepped up and have been reaching out to each other as well, which has been a beauty. That's the way church should work.
Exactly.
So I don't know why it took a pandemic for us to figure that out, but if there are some silver linings to this whole thing, that has been one for us. So we'll survive it, and we'll come out of it, and we'll both be strong. One of the things that I don't know if our people know about, I'm positive you know about, but for the last many years, there's been a dialogue between the Episcopal Church and the United Methodist Church, and to come into some sense of common ministry and mission. And actually, what do you call your big meeting?
General conference.
Your general conference, weren't you? It was to be in 2020.
It was to be, yeah.
And it was postponed to 2022?
2021.
So it's this year?
It's this year, August and September 2021.
Okay, August and September here in Minneapolis,
right?
And isn't on the agenda?
I think they've suggested now that it be put off until 2022.
Oh, yeah, I did see that too.
And the reason for that is because of some internal things that are happening in our denomination.
Right.
In the United Methodist Church, we're still trying to deal with the question of inclusion of LGBTQ people. And that's something we really need to work out and figure out what our identity is going to be on that.
So that's the big question.
That's the big question right now.
In 2021.
I think they want to have that settled at an international level before we go on and make another agreement with another denomination.
Okay. Well, I'm all for that too. You guys figure that out, and then we'll have our good luck with that. We'll keep you we'll keep you in our prayers.
Thank you. Yeah, we need that,
because that's a big thing, and I know that it's gonna really alter probably your identity as the United Methodist Church. It's really a big, it was a big, we've sort of found our way through that way. It was hard, it was difficult, but we found our way through, and God is faithful and is with all parties on, as you get through. But eventually, so 2022, the question of whether the Episcopal Church and the United Methodist Church come into full communion will be on the docket, and it will be at our general convention as well. I think it's in 2022 is when ours is. Because we had to postpone ours as well because of the pandemic. But what that means is, it means all sorts of things, but we can already be in ministry and mission in lots of ways, but to be in full communion means that I could actually have Bill come over here and celebrate communion at our altar, and the same thing with having an Episcopal priest coming to your place. It is a who is the United Methodist Church in full communion with right now?
Well, lots of people at the moment. Most recently with the Lutherans, the ELCA Lutherans, but before that with the Presbyterians and United Church of Christ and Moravians and Reformed Church in America. So quite a few.
Oh, you're doing a lot better than we are. We've got ELCA and the Moravians.
Right.
That's all we have right now. So it would be wonderful to be in full communion with the United Methodist Church as well.
It would be. I've followed this for a number of years, how it's happened in England. You know, in England they have these, they call them LEPs, local ecumenical projects, where in particular areas, the Methodists and Anglicans and sometimes the Reformed churches just joined together. And so the church authorities had to say, all right, you can do that, because they were just doing it. And it was happening.
They were joining together in what way?
They were merging their churches together in small towns and
small towns by necessity.
By necessity, right. And so the church authorities went as many as 30, 40 years ago. These already existed and they were allowed to take place. And so those grassroots things have kind of pushed along what's happening at the national levels, it seems like. Although in England, the Anglicans and Methodists still haven't worked it out to have a real national agreement.
Isn't that so strange? I mean, the roots are, as our folks probably know, your folks know, our roots are the same. Yeah. And in fact, John Wesley, we hold him up as a saint in the church. We have a special day for him in the Episcopal Church. And so it's strange that sometimes the closest of siblings, you have things to work out. You have baggage to work out. Right, maybe that's what it is. Yeah, it's exactly right. I have a sister. That's exactly how it is. And I think the important thing about it is that we look forward to that day when we can locally do these kinds of celebrations together. And I look forward to being able to invite you over to do that. That would be great. That will be great. But in the meantime, until that formally happens, we can do all sorts of things together as well, and probably should be. I'm sure those in England, those congregations found that what unites them is much more than what divides them. Yeah. But the symbol, I think right now, especially in this culture, this world where there's so much divisiveness, I think big symbols like folks coming together even in a formal way, that means something these days.
Definitely.
You know, a commitment to be together means something. Yeah. So, Bill, in Lent, we're coming into Lent, as you know. You guys, do you do anything for Shrove Tuesday?
We don't do Shrove Tuesday, no.
Oh, you don't? No. Okay.
We just go straight for the serious stuff.
Mardi Gras, you should do like a big, we'll come over for a party. Have a party at your bread oven for Shrove Tuesday.
Sounds good. Could probably do pancakes in one of those somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, there we go. But this year, we have a new bishop in ECMM, the Episcopal Church in Minnesota, and our bishop has encouraged us to delve into practiced discipleship. So this year here at St. John's, we're doing that, and specifically during the season of Lent, we're going to be talking about discipleship, and we're taking various aspects of what discipleship is. It's a big thing to follow Jesus. I mean, in some ways it's very simple, and then in other ways it encapsulates all of our lives. So I know that you have a lot of experience and expertise in adult formation, and I'm just wondering, from your perspective, when you think about discipleship, what practices, because that's really what we're about. Episcopalians usually, we're really good about staying up in our minds, but I want to focus on how it's lived out in our lives. So from your perspective, what practices are most critical for a faithful life of discipleship?
Yeah, I think discipleship is really about consciously living your life with God in following Jesus. And the consciously is the important thing. And so anything that in your life that can make you conscious of that journey that you're on with God is an important practice. And I think, some of the ones we embrace, and I personally embrace, would be daily prayer, that time when I get in touch with that center, spirit, heart, however you want to refer to it, that place where I can listen to God and God can be open to listening to me, and we can be together in that quiet place. And there are so few quiet places in the world, even now. And so getting in touch with that every day is so important. I think.
What does that look like for you?
For me, in my own practice, I do a prayer and meditation time every morning.
Yeah.
And that's something that I talk with my congregation about, and encourage people to have a time when they that they set aside as that specific practice in their lives in the way they do it. Another one is, of course, reading the Bible and getting in touch with the spiritual wisdom of people before us. That's found there. And I think that's a crucial one, that we're formed by that sacred story. And being able to connect with that every day is so important. And another one is, we call it, in Methodist churches, we call it conferencing, holy conferencing, which is really just talking or sharing with another person about your own journey. And I do that by being part of a clergy covenant group with other pastors. I do it with a spiritual director, kind of one-on-one every month or so. And but however you find a way to do that, whether it's with a friend or a spouse or whoever, to be able to just kind of hold each other accountable in some ways and encourage each other, and just another way to help remember consciously that I'm on this spiritual journey in my life.
What does that look like? What did you call it again? Spiritual conferencing?
Holy conferencing.
Holy conferencing.
Yeah.
What does holy conferencing look like in COVID?
In COVID, yeah, it's hard. And it involves Zoom a lot of times. And not everybody's
Zoom.
Favorite thing. I'm
Yes.
aware of that. But that may be the best thing we got going right now.
Yeah.
I think for me, it looks like having somebody ask me on a regular basis, where's God working in your life? Where do you see God in what's going on with you now? And if there's something in particular that I'm working through or thinking a lot about, to have somebody ask me, what's happening when you pray about that?
Yeah.
And just to kind of look for those things in my life that I might overlook.
Right.
And to have an outside person help out with that.
Or even when you're not feeling God at all, to have somebody that you can say that to,
Right.
and just say, I'm just not feeling it.
Sure.
I mean, that's a holy moment as well.
It is.
Yeah. To embrace that.
For sure.
Yeah, we're going to be talking about all those things, and a lot of those things are true to our tradition, true to your tradition, embracing the tradition of what the faithful have thought and felt and prayed and written about, and certainly looking at scripture and prayer, those sorts of things. We're going to be looking at a lot of those things. So thank you.
Good. Our Lenten focus is built around the book by Bishop Michael Curry, Love is the Way. That's our book for Lent this year, and our whole congregation is being encouraged to read that. And we're having some sermons kind of around those themes, and some small groups that are going to be looking at it together.
Well, we're looking at the same book in Easter.
Okay.
So you'll be one season ahead of us.
Yeah. It's a great book. I've really enjoyed what I've heard and seen of him, and look forward to delving into that. Yeah,
he has been a powerful voice for the Episcopal Church, and in a tumultuous time, he's provided some great leadership, and so we're proud of him. He's full of joy.
He is.
As I was thinking about talking to you tonight, I was watching a conversation that he had with a United Methodist bishop, talking about the movement toward coming into full communion, And but both of them, it was a beautiful thing. They both had this love of God and glee in their eyes and in their voice and hopefulness in their speech.
Was it Bishop Palmer from
yes,
Ohio?
Yes,
right,
exactly.
And it's great to see the two African Americans representing our churches.
Isn't that the truth?
That's really
great
to see.
It was a beautiful thing.
Leading us, yeah.
Yeah. Well, Bill, one of the things that we do for Between the Trees, and how do you like those trees?
I love the
nice.
trees, beautiful trees, yeah.
They're really not supposed to be that nice, actually, but and they're not even real, so I feel bad about that. But
closest thing to real we've got right now.
I know, in the middle of winter.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's all we've got.
Right.
But one of the things that we do with Between the Trees is we get questions from our congregation, and through the help of a high-tech device called the Wonder Stick.
All right.
That sometimes doesn't behave itself. So questions have come in, so lots of questions.
Oh boy.
So, so I'm going to wait on that one. The top one I'm going to just wait on.
Uh-oh.
So do you see any opportunities for White Bear Lake United Methodist congregation to work with St. John's, reaching out to the local community?
Sure. Yeah. Let's talk more about that. I think, a couple of the things we've been doing recently during the pandemic, we've kind of adopted a business cooperative in Minneapolis, Cooperativa Mercado Central. Maybe some of you are familiar with that. It's small businesses owned by immigrant families. Many of them were already struggling during the pandemic, and then many of their businesses were damaged during the protests and rioting that happened earlier last year. And so we've kind of embraced, there's about 40 families there that we've tried to help out in a lot of different ways, financially and moral support and otherwise.
Yeah.
And so that's something that we could talk more about. Here closer to home, we've also been doing some work with Solid Ground. And also we have some people in our church who are really passionate about getting books into the hands of school children. And so we've kind of adopted Willow Lane Elementary as a place where that's really needed. And so
that's beautiful. I mean, those are the sorts of things too that are so that we don't have to have any sort of formal agreement. Sure. Two congregations the leaders can just decide we're going to do some things together.
Yeah.
And which is a great way because you build relationships as well in the midst of that. So
we already cooperate. People might not know that the gathering happens at our church with a whole lot of volunteers from St. John's.
Right.
And appreciated the chance to get to know some of those folks.
Yeah, and is your garden in your...
It's in our
That's a Giving Garden, which Chris
is.
Harms
Right.
is connected
Sure.
here at St. John's.
Yeah.
So yeah, we already have some connection there. So yeah. Oh, there's another. Do I put this one on top too? Okay. Okay, yeah, so somebody says they would love to hear more on the open letter we jointly signed. So that was back in the wake of the George Floyd murder. And some of the congregations here in White Bear, or some of the pastors, decided we should issue a statement. And not all in White Bear Lake did, but you did, I did. That actually, you were the one who initiated it, weren't you, Bill?
I did initiate that one.
Yeah, what were you thinking?
Well, when we're appointed as United Methodist pastors, we're not appointed to a church, we're appointed to a community.
Right.
And so I try to keep that in mind and see myself as a spiritual leader, not just for my own congregation, but for the wider community too. And in those times like that, when a word of truth needs to be spoken, and a word of hope and unity, it just seemed really important to find a way to do that.
Yeah.
And I don't know if a letter in the newspaper and online is really the best way to do that, but that's what we
it was a way
pull together right then. And
yeah.
So appreciate your participation in that.
Yeah, and I think you sort of knocked out the first draft, and we got on a conference call, and the people who eventually signed it, and we tweaked the letter. We all got it to a point where we felt good about what it said, what we wanted to say, and put it forth. Did you get much reaction from?
A little bit, not really any negative reaction that I recall, but a lot of positive reaction. I think that was good. People, I think, people, even if they're not in our churches, they appreciate hearing from faith leaders, especially at times like this. And, want to, at least, even if they don't agree with what we say, it gives them a new way to think about something maybe. And
one of the things I've struggled with a little bit here, and I bet you have too, is that when you feel like you need to speak truth, part of our job as pastors and priests are that we have a prophetic voice that sometimes we have to speak or to use, and sometimes that comes across as political. I mean, when at least for me, maybe it's the way I am expressing things sometimes. I'm wondering if you have struggled with that, or how you find that way of speaking truth without seeming like you're trying to be political. From my perspective, in my heart of hearts, I'm never trying to be political, but sometimes I feel like I have to name it as I see it.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's what we all have to do. I've heard someone talk about it as prophetic persuasion, that we're not, pastors and preachers are not really trying to tell people a political view they have to embrace, but to kind of persuade them to see things in a different way.
In a gospel way.
In a gospel way, and from God's point of view, you might even say, and just to have a different look at it. It's hard to say that the gospel is not political, though. I mean, obviously it doesn't take sides on our American political parties, but there are a lot of things political about the message of Jesus, because it's about people and power, and that's really what politics is all about. So.
And there's certain things about, if you are a faithful reader of Scripture, that, I mean, it's hard to ignore the fact that Jesus has a predisposition for the poor.
Right.
And followers of Christ are called to look out for the poor and the needy, and that's hard to. It's hard to skirt around that truth.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. So, and I think we need to name that, and continue to name it, because Jesus names it.
Sure.
Yeah. So, anyway, okay. Who does the community garden serve?
I missed the last one.
The community garden that is over at your church. Who does it serve? The produce.
Yeah, I think of it as the United Nations. You can look out there any afternoon or evening in the summer, and there are people from everywhere in the world there, and some of them recent immigrants, some of them people who have been here forever. One night I was out there just walking through, talking to some people who were working in the garden last summer, and there was a family from Guatemala that had just moved into an apartment in the neighborhood that summer and had found a way to the garden. There was also a family from India. The husband and wife are both PhD engineers at 3M, and they've had a garden spot there for many years now. And that community is really a diverse, vibrant community out there every evening. And we continue to try to find ways to connect them together and to try to do something together to celebrate at least the gifts of the earth that they've managed to grow there. And we haven't really found a great way to do that.
Yeah.
Language is part of the issue there, but it's a great community of people there.
How big is the garden over?
Let's see, I think there are about 40 plots.
Wow.
40 garden plots.
That's a lot of food being grown.
It is, yeah.
Ours, Chris Harms, who's head of Giving Gardens, again, he's a member here. And because we're right here, we have like a tiny little place set aside, but at least it's more like an outward and visible symbol again, that we care about the earth, and we care about growing things, and we care about growing things for others. We're really really proud of Chris and his efforts with Giving Gardens, and try to support him.
Sure, yeah, it's a great thing.
So, yeah. Okay, another garden question. How many fresh tomatoes to swap for a loaf of brick oven bread?
Wow.
We have
Now
the
that's
reason.
a
I
deal.
bet you this
I
comes
like
from
that.
Chris. Actually, Chris, if you're out there, we had a ton of tomatoes this year. Every time I would leave the church, Chris would be out there tending these huge, beautiful tomato bushes. And so how many?
Chris, I can definitely set you up with a loaf of bread. Just a couple of tomatoes would be great.
I know, it'll take a lot of tomatoes to be worth a loaf of that bread. That's good stuff. So, okay. Good. All right. And, okay, and then the last one, this was on the top of the pile. But what is the first thing you remember about me from college?
Wow, that is interesting.
Because we didn't know each other very well.
I remember, were you on crutches for a while? Did you have surgery?
I did, yeah. I injured myself playing ultimate frisbee.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
Yes.
A common injury in college, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's probably about the first thing I remember.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. What year would that have been?
I played all those years, so I can't. It was probably like junior year, maybe. Yeah, so
Funny.
maybe it was sophomore. I can't remember now. But
Yeah.
I had a lot of injuries, so.
Yeah. And what do you remember about me? We have to go both ways here.
Boy, Bill, what do I remember about you? The Christian you were in Christian fellowship, right?
Yeah.
So there was a Christian fellowship. It was not an Episcopal thing. And by the way, Sewanee, where we went to undergrad, is Episcopal Mecca of the United States. And I'm just wondering how you got out of Sewanee without becoming an Episcopalian.
Yeah, that's funny. I loved the Episcopal Church there. I had a great experience with it there, and went to worship in the chapel every Sunday. And my family hadn't really gone to church growing up, and I was still kind of just finding my way at that point, I think, and ended up being Methodist. So,
wow.
Yeah.
That's a whole nother story.
It is, sure.
Yeah, we don't have time for
next time.
Yeah, next time.
All right, good.
Yeah, the part 2. So, thank you, Bill. Thanks so much for coming over here. A huge gift to us. It's fun to see you. We see each other out on the lake walk because we occasionally run into each other, summer and winter. We see each other out there. But thank you for coming over here.
Thank you, St. John's. Great to be with you.
Thank you for providing such good leadership at White Bear Lake United Methodist, and for being an inclusive, loving community, in this community. I mean, it's a testament to you. I think that's the reputation that you have in this community. So, kudos to you. Keep it up. Keep the faith, and we'll look for ways to do things together.
Sounds good.
So,
thank you.
And thanks to all of you for joining us tonight. Thanks once again to Jeff and to Carrie. They're the best. They come in early and then put everything together and take it down again. So thanks to you guys. And next week is Ash Wednesday, and so we will not be having Between the Trees at Ash Wednesday. We are going to have drive-up imposition of ashes, however, which is almost as good as Between the Trees, but that's going to be on First Street here. And if you want more information about that, listen up to the other things we're doing or check out the website. So thanks so much. And then we'll start again with Between the Trees in the first week of Lent. So, and the theme for those Between the Trees, again, is practice discipleship. And we're going to be talking to parishioners about how they're living out various aspects of what it means to be a disciple of Jesus. So hopefully you'll tune in for that. And again, thanks for being with us tonight. God bless.